Our confidence is who's on the throne. We're trusting the sovereignty of God.
I want to live in an American society that is strong morally.
Religion is a tool to control the masses.
Hello and welcome to American Views, France 24's special coverage in the lead up to the 2020 U.S. presidential election. We're going to take you on a road trip to 6 key swing states that will be critical in determining who ends up in the White House. Today, we're going to focus on the southern state of Georgia. Now, traditionally, Georgia has been a conservative, Republican-leading state. But over the years, its population has grown more diverse and its politics more competitive, like here in the state capital, Atlanta. Here are some other key things you need to know about this battleground state.
Nestled between the Atlantic Ocean, Florida, and the Carolinas, Georgia is in the deep south of the United States. The state is a landscape of contrast with mountains in the north and marshes in the south. Georgia has a population of 10.6 million people. Its capital city is Atlanta. Atlanta is Georgia's economic hub. The global city hosts a headquarters of corporations including UPS, Delta Airlines, and Coca-Cola. Black or African American voters make up 33% of the population. The state is known as the birthplace of the civil rights movement. Georgia is a divided state. While African Americans and white voters with degrees tend to vote Democrat, the rural zones vote largely Republican. There's a large evangelical population, a key support base for Donald Trump. Georgia is worth 16 electoral college votes. In 2016, 50.4% of voters chose Donald Trump, but this year that could change. The state hasn't voted for a Democratic candidate since Bill Clinton in 1992.
Over the past decade across America, there's been a lot of talk of shifting demographics and political change. But there's one key group of voters that's remained virtually unaltered, and that is white evangelical voters who remain a staunchly Republican bloc. Now, they represent about 26% of the electorate nationally, and they are very important here in Georgia. Whether it's fighting against abortion or in favor of religious freedom, they have found a cheerleader in the White House and are particularly fond of the president's pick to fill the seat on the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett. But not all white evangelicals are on the Trump bandwagon, as our correspondents Loic Piala and Alyssa Caverly report.
Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us?
For the past 4 years in the Bible Belt states, God has had some competition. Donald Trump's presence is everywhere. 40% of the people living in Georgia are evangelical Christians. In the small town of Milner, the church is at the heart of the community, and the congregation keeps it beating. At Rock Springs Church, a group of widows holds an event for church staff. The guest of honor, Pastor Benny Tate.
Ladies, listen, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for doing this for our staff. We really really.
Pastor Tate runs the megachurch with 6,000 members, 10 times the population of the town. There were only a few dozen people here when Pastor Tate started 30 years ago, but today the church includes multiple campuses.
This room seats about 1,100 people. Now, of course, our worship team will be up here. I will stand there in the pulpit and preach. A lot of lives have been changed. We've had some tremendous services in this building.
Each Sunday, Pastor Tate holds 3 services.
We don't endorse the Republican Party. We don't endorse the Democratic Party. We will deal with biblical issues and say this is the biblical teaching in this area. America's going to make it no matter who's elected, because our confidence is not in who's in the White House. Our confidence is who's on the throne. We're trusting the sovereignty of God and God's hand on America.
But not all evangelicals agree on how to interpret the way God handles the country, especially when it comes to science.
I grew up going to a Christian school from kindergarten through graduation. I've remained a Christian my whole life. I would say that my faith is the biggest pillar I have in my life.
Carrie Metz is an evangelical Christian She's also an environmental activist. Many evangelicals deny climate change, but Carrie doesn't understand this conflict between science and faith.
I think there is nothing more pro-life than tackling climate change. Science is one of the most Christian things we have. It's God's way of showing himself to us, and God wants us to be smart. He wants us to be thinkers. If you read the Bible, God calls on us to be stewards of our planet. He calls on us to take care of our planet.
Carrie just moved to the northern suburbs of Atlanta and has yet to find a new evangelical church.
With the new Supreme Court nomination, I feel she's not a great pick. I'm also nervous about her strong religious pulls and how that's going to affect women's rights here in the States.
You know, as a Christian, I don't believe in abortion myself personally, but, whatever somebody else does, they would have to answer to God for that.
I think abortion is an issue across the United States in the way they're trying to infringe upon the basic human right, which is bodily autonomy, sadly.
Religion is a prerequisite for government. It's just a tool to control the masses. I mean, that's what it is, in my opinion. So I think that's just more of the same.
To understand the ins and the outs of the white evangelical vote, I'm joined by Dr. Ralph Reed. Thank you so much for being with us on France 24. You're the president of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, a social conservative political advocacy group with over 2 million members. You chaired the Georgia Republican Party and have worked on almost a dozen presidential campaigns, including Donald Trump's campaign. Now, 4 years ago, many evangelical voters expressed misgivings about President Trump's moral character. Do you think that those doubts are gone?
I think those doubts are really largely gone. I mean, we've had the benefit of 4 years of his leadership. And I think the best way that I could sum it up would be in 4 words: promises made, promises kept. He was the first presidential candidate in American history to release a list of judges and jurists and say that he would fill a vacant seat on the U.S. Supreme Court with someone from that list. He did that not once, not twice, he did it 3 times. And he's the only president in American history who has ever done that. And he's done it 200 other times for other federal judges. He kept his word on moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He kept his word on cutting taxes. He kept his word on being pro-life. So I think at this point, they don't have to take it on faith anymore. They've got a proven record of success and accomplishment. And I think they're going to back Donald Trump in even bigger numbers in 2020 than they did in 2016.
Now, you mentioned Donald Trump's pro-life stance. Do you believe the president has followed through on his campaign promises, particularly about abortion?
Well, he restored and strengthened the Mexico City policy that prevents the use of taxpayer money from being used to promote abortion in overseas family planning programs. He went into federal court and defended the Little Sisters of the Poor and other Christian organizations that were being forced under Obamacare to pay for abortion-inducing medication. That wasn't just an abortion issue, it was a religious freedom issue. He defunded Planned Parenthood under the Title X program, and he also became the first president in American history to speak at the March for Life. So you could make a very strong argument that he's been the most pro-life president in American history.
You mentioned the Supreme Court. What do you think about Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Donald Trump's pick to fill the open seat on the Supreme Court?
Well, we're absolutely thrilled. We've been big fans of Judge Barrett for a long time. She's a towering and brilliant intellect. She's a highly respected legal scholar. And again, it's an example of a promise that the president made that he kept. We not only have an opportunity to put on the court the first woman who's a mother of school-age children to ever sit on the court and bring the perspective of a woman at that stage of her life, but also a devout woman of faith, a woman whose Christian faith is very important to her. She's been attacked for it.
And as an evangelical Christian, what is your vision for an ideal American society?
You know, I want to see a society that is prosperous, with abundance for everybody. I'd like to see poverty continue to fall and employment continue to rise. I also have a vision of a society in which everyone can live in a safe neighborhood, free from the plague of crime and drugs. And I want to live in an American society that is strong morally, where families are strong, where people worship God as they understand Him to be, where families are intact. That's a part of our vision, is to see people have an intact and a healthy family and marriage, because we think that's the most successful Department of Health, Education, and Welfare ever conceived. And loving parents and a loving home can do a better job than any government program ever can.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Reed.
You bet.
Joe Biden, the candidate for the Democratic Party, has likened the 2020 U.S. presidential election to a battle for the soul of the nation. But many white evangelical voters have put their faith in the candidate for the Republican Party, U.S. President Donald Trump. They believe that he has delivered on their Christian agenda and are eager to keep him in the White House to defend the ground they've gained over the past 4 years. Well, that wraps it up for this edition of American Views. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned to France 24.